After yesterday's bombshell report that Vince McMahon is forcing a return to WWE, the former WWE chairman and CEO has now released a statement detailing his actions and detailing his plan to return to the company. But there is major fallout inside WWE with talent threatening to leave if Vince McMahon returns. The board also does not want McMahon to return to the company, which McMahon is doing to force a sale. We've got the latest reaction, the latest fallout in today's big breaking news story. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of world wrestling entertainment. And man, oh man, the fallout, the details from Vince McMahon's forced hostile takeover, grabbing the company back and holding it hostage until he is back in his executive chairman's seat is the biggest story in pro wrestling right now. And it's got a huge amount of reaction, and every single second, every single minute, there seems to be latest details, new details, statements, quotes, reactions. We're going to get into all of it this morning, so be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let's start off doing some background on this. If you're not familiar, if you've been living under a rock for the last 12 hours or so, about a month ago, a report emerged that Vince McMahon was apparently having second thoughts about his retirement following the revelation that he was being investigated for using hush money payments to cover up scandals, and like Napoleon in exile in St. Helena, he was plotting a way back in. Yesterday, that plot became a reality. The Wall Street Journal reported that McMahon was actively planning a return to WWE in order to pursue a sale of the company. In his attempt to do so, McMahon, who even after retirement maintained majority voting power, has appointed himself, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson to WWE's board of directors. Now, to facilitate this, McMahon will now need 3 other directors to vacate their positions, followed by board approval to officially retake his post as WWE chairman. Now, as I mentioned, Vince McMahon confirmed his news, confirmed his plans, his intentions in a press release, which we'll talk about just shortly. We'll read it all out for you. Now, as for the appointments of Barrios and Wilson, they've actually previously served as WWE co-directors and presidents from 2018 to 2020. They were let go with the perception that they were underachieving and they could do better. However, they're now back in the fold with the company. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, McMahon initially approached WWE about a return in December with the intention of selling the company, but WWE, while telling McMahon that they would work with him, rebuffed a return, believing it would not be in the best interest of the shareholders. McMahon responded to the board that he would refuse any sale or media rights deal unless he could resume his old position, effectively taking his own company hostage, saying, "If you don't let me return, I'm going to veto any new negotiations, any sale, and any television right fees," essentially tanking the company unless he can come back and assume power. Now, a press release was released shortly after the Wall Street Journal's report yesterday from Vince McMahon himself. Vince McMahon has actually commented on this, and certainly it's very, very interesting. The report says, or the press release rather says, Vince McMahon, the founder and controlling shareholder of World Wrestling Entertainment, announced today he has taken necessary actions to position the company to capitalize on a unique opportunity to maximize long-term value for all WWE shareholders. The actions communicated to WWE's board of directors today via written consent include the election to the board of Mr. McMahon, as well as Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, former WWE co-presidents and board members, and currently the co-founders and co-CEOs of ESOS Capital Management, and the requisite removal of the board of 3 directors. McMahon expects to assume the role of executive chairman of the board. Mr. McMahon's new role will enable unified decision-making through the company's upcoming media rights negotiations and parallel full review of the company's strategic alternatives, which Mr. McMahon believes is the right course of action and in the best interests of WWE and WWE shareholders amidst the current dynamics in the media and entertainment industry. As Mr. McMahon has communicated to the board, he believes there is a narrow window of opportunity to create significant value for all shareholders, and that to do so, the strategic alternatives review must occur in tandem with the media rights negotiations. He also expressed to the board that he believes these 2 initiatives require Mr. McMahon direct participation, leadership, and support as controlling shareholder. This is what he had to say, quote, WWE is entering a critical juncture in its history with the upcoming media rights negotiations coinciding with the increased industry-wide demand for quality content and live events, and with more companies seeking to own the intellectual property on their platform, said Mr. McMahon. The only way for WWE to fully capitalize on this opportunity is for me to return as executive chairman and support the management team in the negotiations for our media rights, and to combine that with a review of strategic alternatives. My return will allow WWE, as well as any transaction counterparties, to engage in these processes, knowing they will have the support of the controlling shareholder. Now, prior to delivering written consent, Mr. McMahon sent 2 separate letters to the board in late December in which he expressed the urgency of his return to the company as executive chairman and his desire to work collaboratively with the board and management team. Following conversations with representatives of the company both before and after Mr. McMahon's most recent letter on December 31st, Mr. McMahon determined, consistent with his rights as controlling shareholder, that the steps announced today are necessary to maximize value for all WWE shareholders. Mr. McMahon said, quote, Ms. Wilson and Mr. Barrios are highly qualified directors whose professional experience positions them well to help the company achieve the best possible outcomes in both initiatives. As former WWE co-presidents and board members, they are intimately familiar with industry dynamics and the organization's operations and have helped guide the company through past successful media rights negotiations. I look forward to working closely again with Michelle and George, as well as the company's remaining directors and management team, who have my full support and confidence. WWE has an exceptional management team in place, and I do not intend for my return to have any impact on their roles, duties, or responsibilities. In conjunction with the changes to WWE's board, Mr. McMahon's written consent also includes certain amendments to the company's bylaws to ensure that WWE's corporate governance continues to properly enable and support shareholder rights. These changes will be detailed in a scheduled 13D amendment to be filed by Mr. McMahon and a Form 8K to be filed by the company in the coming days. No assurances can be given regarding the outcome or timing of the review process. Mr. McMahon does not intend to comment further until the process has concluded or Mr. McMahon has otherwise determined that further disclosure is appropriate or required. It then goes on to talk about Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, etc. Now, when it comes to forward-looking statements, it continues saying, quote, this press release contains forward-looking statements pursuant to the safe harbor provisions of the Securities Litigation Reform Act in 1995. Forward-looking statements include statements regarding Mr. McMahon's return to the board as executive chairman, the impact of Mr. McMahon, Ms. Wilson, and Mr. Barrios, as well as members of the board, the timing and the success of the company's media rights negotiations, and the company's review of strategic alternatives. And they talk about, again, all this kind of stuff. It's legalese essentially cover that. Now, as far as a reaction inside the company, well, it would be as expect. It would be what you would expect it to be: chaos, frustration, shock. I don't even know the right words. If I'm at a loss for words, then just imagine what the WWE talent, what the executives, what the employees, what everyone in the company is feeling right now. Now, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, of course, now that Vince McMahon is forcing his way back into WWE and holding the company hostage, everyone reportedly was left in the dark about it. Vince McMahon elected himself and former co-presidents and directors Michelle Wilson and George Barrios to the board, which will require 3 current directors to vacate their positions. McMahon has majority voting power, and the Wall Street Journal reported he's forcing his way back into the company to oversee a media rights deal and or force a sale of the company. He said he would block any attempts at either without him, and again saying, look, unless I come back, I'm going to block any final approval of the majority shareholder of these media rights deals or even a sale of the company, despite the fact they would make him millions, possibly billions of dollars. He said he has to be in the company. As I mentioned, he sent a press release stating that he would collaborate with the current management team, but did not directly address a potential return to creative, which again has people raising their eyebrows because, of course, Vince McMahon lies. So despite the fact him saying, I'm only going to come back and be involved in the sale of the company and media rights negotiations, people are saying it's a foot in the door. And if it's a foot in the door, Vince McMahon will do what he's done for decades, and that's throw his power around. Now, Sean Ross Sapp is reporting that Fightful reached out to WWE in an official capacity, as well as the author of the Wall Street Journal, to gain more info. They haven't heard back as of this recording right now. Now, according to Sapp, Fightful has already heard from dozens within WWE who are all floored by the announcement. Nobody in any department, talent, production, creative, or general staff that Fightful heard back from was briefed, tipped off, or given any information before or immediately after the news broke. This is what one talent told Fightful, quote, "Not one bit, but considering some people from his regime were kept this long, they must have known it would happen. We'll see if they talk to us tomorrow," one talent told Fightful, referring to the upcoming January 6th SmackDown taping, which of course will be taking place tonight. As I mentioned, last month, the Wall Street Journal reported that McMahon told people close to him he was hoping to return, but didn't state in what capacity. WWE sources reportedly came out of the woodwork to let Fightful know, albeit anonymously, that McMahon is not wanted back in a general sense. Another top talent wasn't only given any information, but also asked what the possibilities of a return to creative would be. The idea that McMahon could return to creative has been a common concern among talent. The two sources that Fightful heard back from within the creative department had not learned of any adjustments to their duties and said they were sent some notes for SmackDown shortly before the Wall Street Journal's Vince McMahon story. Now, keeping with the theme, production employees were also not informed about this. The unanimous reaction that Fightful gained from many who commented on the matter was either bad news or, quote, news above their pay grade that they wouldn't concern themselves with until they needed to. One source noted that the increase in the after-hours stock price. One talent said, quote, "Finding out online is scary, and it's Vince, so I don't believe a word he says. I hope current management and everything doesn't change, but only time will tell," before noting they have a lot of respect for Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Another talent says they believe there will be roster uproar if Vince McMahon returns to head up creative. Quote, "I can't count how many interviews I've read or people I've talked to outside the company that said, Vince liked me, but I got fired. He didn't like you. He didn't like any of them. He fired, or they wouldn't have been fired during the pandemic," one concerned higher up said. Quote, "I would be blown away if he returned to creative," a recently signed talent said. Of course, the problem is Vince McMahon lies. And again, now the reaction from this is leading to some talent saying, if he comes back, I'm leaving, I'll walk. PW Insider's Mike Johnson has provided an update on the feeling behind the scenes at WWE. Answering a question about the reaction to the news, Johnson responded, quote, "It's pretty much shocked everyone we have spoken with. I would say that except for the most inner circle, this absolutely took them by surprise." He would then go on to state, quote, "The company morale has gone up exponentially since Vince retired, so a lot of people are wondering what things will look like in the days ahead. Lots of trepidation for sure. We've heard from some who have said if he's back, they want out. But whether that actually happens remains to be seen." And again, it's shock. It's people didn't know this was coming. And again, I know that a lot of people have said, wow, it just goes to show about the dirt sheets, these websites. They didn't know anything was going on. The talent didn't know what was going on. Executives didn't know what was going on. Frankly, the WWE board of directors only found out about this 6 days ago on December 31st with Vince McMahon saying, "I think I should come back." And it was only filed yesterday. The paperwork was only filed yesterday to say that this is what he was going to do. So a lot of them found out then anyway. It was only Vince McMahon and a handful of people that knew. So to criticize websites or to criticize journalists saying, well, they're not proper journalists, they didn't know, this story was given to the Wall Street Journal, most likely by Vince McMahon himself. It's been one publication the whole time. It's been a tennis match of back and forth through the Wall Street Journal. It's been WWE executives leaking out the stories about the sexual misconduct allegations to the Wall Street Journal. Then it's been McMahon himself leaking stories to the Wall Street Journal to try and fight back. This story, you have to just open your eyes for a second, was leaked by either McMahon or people close to him because the story broke and then the press release came out a couple of minutes later. That's how media works. This has all been planned and plotted by McMahon, probably most likely in the fallout of him retiring, probably like a month after. Let's be honest. He retired. He got some advice, he thinks, or he thought, I tell you what, I've got to step away from WWE. I'm going to retire because there are active investigations into me right now at a federal level. There were lawsuits coming. The company could have tanked. It could have literally been blown apart. He could have had criminal investigation as well. He retired, and then he realized after about 6 weeks, actually, you know what? These federal investigations, they're going to take time. Criminal probes probably aren't going to come for a long time as well. This is my company. If anyone's going to kill it, it's going to be me. The whole NWO injecting a lethal dose of poison, that's real. That's now real life. And Vince McMahon is holding his own company hostage. He's saying, damn it, you can't force me out. I'm forcing my way back in. And I'm telling you, as majority shareholder, if you don't let me come back in as executive chairman, I'm not signing off on anything. Any sale, any media rights negotiations. So Fox wants SmackDown for even more money, not signing off on it. Raw wants, NBC Universal want Raw for more money, not signing off on it. I'm not signing off on anything. Disney want to buy WWE for $6-7 billion. I'm not signing off on it because it's my company. I'm a giant egomaniac and it can only happen with me involved. And he can say, no, I'm only going to come back in and just facilitate a sale of the company. I'm only going to come back in to negotiate the best possible rights deals for the company, but it's a foot in the door. He can say, I have no intention of splitting up this management team. I have no intention of taking over creative. I'm just focused on doing what's best for WWE. That is a lie. That is a lie. Because it's a foot in the door. Once he's back as chairman of the board, he can do what he wants. He can appoint people to certain positions. Yes, he would need board approval, but if he's got 2 board of directors, it's no coincidence he's not coming back alone as well. He's coming back with 2 directors because then he believes with the majority voting power he has, plus 2 other directors, we have probably said to him, look, Vince, as long as you say we'll have a job for life, we'll vote whatever you want to do. And that's the votes that he needs. That's the votes to make him the CEO again. That's the votes for him to be the head of creative again. That's the vote to vote him into doing anything he wants. It's not about the sale of the company. It's not about media rights deals. It's about Vince McMahon getting back in his role. That's what it's about. Because let's face it, he'd make the money. He's still the majority shareholder. If he stayed retired and they sold the company, he'd be an even bigger billionaire. He'd get the majority of that money. If they did the media rights fees and the stock price went up and they got good deals, he'd make millions. He can't be out of it. He's an egomaniac that has to be involved. He can't stand that this company has done better without him. He can't stand that nobody wants him back. And frankly, he doesn't care. He doesn't care that people don't want him back. He doesn't care about talent. He doesn't care about the fans. He cares about himself and his own ego. This is a giant man-child who's in his late 70s. That's the situation right now. And he can dress it up as, oh, it's only about the sale. No, it's not. It's not about that. It's part of a plan. Clearly, he's been formulating this plan for months, and now it's going into full gear. And ultimately, whether it'll pay off or not, I don't know. Seemingly, he thinks it will. And ultimately, it kind of feels like it might be a situation whereby nobody's got any, what can anyone do? What reaction can they do? They can't do anything. If he's got the majority of the power and he's got a couple of extra votes on the board, he's already said, I'm going to work with the management team. He's already getting rid of 2 board of directors, with 3 actually, 1 so he can come in and 2 for Wilson and Barrios. So he's already making those changes. He can say, quote, WWE has an exceptional management team in place, and I do not intend for my return to have any impact on their roles, duties, or responsibilities, but that's a lie. You don't think Vince McMahon will be holding a grudge? He was forced out of his own company because of his own actions, by the way, his own sexual misconduct allegations, by the way. He was forced out because of himself. You don't think, again, think of how this all started. It was started by people leaking stuff to the Wall Street Journal. And it's kind of been alluded that those people leaking the stories were on the board of directors. If he gets power back in, they're all gone. They're all gone and he'll start the company again. And the talent that just come back, well, he'll make their lives a living hell too. This could be chaos. And I know McMahon said, oh, it's only about the sale. Vince McMahon lies. That's what he's based his career on. He lies. That's what he does. And just think how insane it is. So Vince McMahon, and again, when it comes to the sale, as a Manchester United fan who heard a very similar press release about exploring strategic alternatives, that's the businessese here. Exploring strategic alternatives basically means we've put the company up for sale. But they use that kind of framework because if they can't find a buyer, they can say, well, we were just exploring it. It was just a process. The process comes to an end and we determined the best thing is to not sell the company right now and for us to maintain the majority ownership. And do you think, again, take a step back, how crazy is this? Vince McMahon thinks now's the window to try and sell, which is, in this landscape, it probably is, but he wants to steer the sale, he wants to be reinstalled, even though him being back in and steering the sale would badly jeopardize a sale. It would make less money because the stock price would go down. And there are active investigations into him, into the company. With him being there, they will ramp back up once again. And he's willing, by the way, even though he thinks now's the best window to sell, he's willing to hold a sale or media rights deal hostage so he gets back into the company. He's basically saying, let me back in or the company will die. Now, people had said for years it will die without Vince McMahon. And people thought that was because he was this all-seeing Wizard of Oz-like figure. But then they pulled back the curtain and they went, there's nothing there. He's just as competent as your average CEO or chairman in WWE. The company is and was fine. It's working. There's no problem. Nobody wants you back. And he's saying, you let me back in or the company dies. That's it. Now, what is quite interesting from an AEW perspective, to bring them in, if Warner Bros. Discovery doesn't have an optional year on AEW, and which they might, but there's a feeling that this year AEW is also going to be negotiating their television rights fees, there's a very, very, very good chance that AEW and Tony Khan, they could end up being real big winners involved in all of this. Because if you're a big television network and you want to get weekly live content like pro wrestling that draws pretty well, why deal with all of that? Yes, WWE's the name. Yes, WWE's the brand. But also at the same time, WWE's now in the headlines once again for the wrong reasons. Because this 77-year-old egomaniac who's got these allegations against him is forcing his way back into a company that doesn't want him back. And you could say, actually, you know what? I don't want to deal with that because that might blow up in our face. Why don't we get AEW instead? They've got an NFL owner, a rich family. The rating's not as good. The exposure's not as good. But I don't want to deal with WWE right now. And frankly, they might not be able to deal with WWE right now because if Vince McMahon doesn't get back in, he's not going to allow his own company to negotiate anyway. That drama, if you're a network, you'd say, actually, you know what? I'm not even bothering. I don't want to get involved. Now, in comparison, John Laurinaitis, the other person that was let go because of this whole drama revolving these allegations, he can't even get a booking. John Laurinaitis, he was meant to be at WrestleCon. He won't be at WrestleCon. On Wednesday, it was reported that Laurinaitis would be at WrestleCon in Los Angeles during WrestleMania 39 weekend. He was booked by Bobby Fulton's Big Time Collectibles, but on Thursday, Fulton took to social media to reveal that Laurinaitis' appearance had been cancelled due to negative feedback. Saying, quote, yesterday we announced John Laurinaitis would be doing an appearance with Big Time Collectibles. Upon the announcement, we received only negative feedback. After much consideration, we have decided not to work with him. We apologize to those that were offended by us working with him. Now again, Laurinaitis was involved in that. He was involved in those hush money payments. You've got one guy that can't even get booked for a convention, and maybe he shouldn't, and another guy trying to force his way back to being the chairman of a billion-dollar publicly traded company. Make it make sense, folks. It doesn't. And again, the talent are in uproar. Executives are in uproar. Nobody knows what's going on. It's chaos. And with this chaos, that means more stories are coming, more reactions coming. So, of course, if we get it, we'll talk about it here on the channel. Let me know your thoughts on this story once again in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.